I think it was important because, as I've said, I think Kevin Durant's their best player, but I think Steph is their most important player. So to get him going was nice. But honestly, my main concern going into this game, if I was a Warriors fan, was not Steph and whether or not he was going to shoot well. It was the offense. I thought in Game 2 and even in Game 1, they became too Kevin Durant-centric.
Yes.
They were ISOing Durant, posting Durant. He's bringing the ball up. It didn't look like the Golden State.
Like the Warriors.
Right?
It looks as if they had almost accepted that Steph was going to be in a slump.
Yes. It made me wonder if early on, if Steph and Clay didn't get it going, if they just say, okay, let's go through KD tonight and use him as a crutch when those two don't have it going. But my thing is, whether they have it going or not, stick with your ball movement, player movement offense, because that makes them special.
Yes.
If playing the other way, they're still elite because they have talent, but they're not special.
That is exactly right, Cris Broussard. Like when Kevin Durant is the focal point of the offense, they look like a typical great NBA team. When Steph Curry is the focal point of the offense, they look unlike any NBA team I can remember. And so, like, I said it the last week. Steph's offense is infectious. Like, I mean, how about this? So, Draymond, after taking 10 shots in the first 2 games, took 9 yesterday. Andre Iguodala, after taking 7 shots in the first 2 games combined, took 6 yesterday. Like, those guys all of a sudden, even though they're not hitting shots, they're more involved. Like, the ball is moving more. This team, when he is their best guy, that's when the offense feels unguardable to me.
Yes, and that's one of the things that's made them special the last 4 years. People don't talk about their ball movement. People don't talk about their defense, but those are the things. And to your point, in games number 1 and 2, especially in game number 2, they had 50 less passes than what they would typically have. So they're easier to guard. And like we talked about, it was as if the Golden State had accepted, man, Steph, we're going to have to live in this new world where Steph is just normal compared to sensational. But they had the luxury of being able to go with KD. For me, I'm not going to overreact. But what I thought Steph was back to normal in the second half of that game. But this was just a bad second half by Houston. 11 points at halftime after all the layups and everything that they missed. Like, they should have been right there to contest the rest of this game.
To underscore that point, in the first half, especially the first quarter, Steph hit 2 shots. He had 5 points. But they were up 9 in the first quarter. So it's not just let's get Steph going. It's the way they play. And in the first quarter, their defense got them going.
Yes.
The fact that they were forcing turnovers, Houston was turning it over, and they got out in transition and ran. So if they play their game, even if Steph's not hot, then Clay may be hot. You know, Clay hasn't really gotten off in this series.
They had a 21-point lead before Steph hit a second-half 3.
There you go.
He had got an and one and a layup, but he didn't start that eruption. They had a 21-point lead. The Rockets then cut it to 13, and then Steph went off. But, like, they were going to be okay in this game without him because why? Their small ball lineup out-rebounded the Rockets by 7 when it's out there. If you let their small ball out-rebound you, you got no shot. The Rockets had 19 turnovers to the Warriors' 8. If you turn the ball over more than the Warriors, you're finished. That's their one weak point on offense, how often they turn the ball over. Like, all that's going on, and then Steph, and you said exactly what I've written down. KD's the best, Steph's the most important, and he's the most beloved. That Oracle crowd roars for him differently than it roars for any other player on that team, and he feeds off that.
KD, and this is what makes him great, he doesn't have to be featured. And in Golden State, he should not be featured. He should just be included. And he can get you 30 just being included. Wow. You know, you're not running. He's just doing his thing. That, like, LeBron kind of is different in that regard because he's not as good of a shooter as Durant. So they need to keep that focus, and they'll be fine.
But it also helps the Warriors immensely, the fact that not only were the Rockets' shots not going in, they weren't aggressive. Mike D'Antoni called them soft. They really just didn't show up. And on top of that, now Steph Curry breaks out. It was like the perfect storm for the Houston Rockets.
I mean, they went back to Game 1. I thought it was a lot more ISO. Even though Harden didn't take a ton of shots, they didn't have the movement off the ball. Like in game, because you saw the stats in game 2, everybody felt like, wow, there's so much more ball and player movement. They had more ISOs in game 2, but off the ball, guys were moving around, and they didn't do that. I don't know how you keep bouncing back. Like game 1, no movement. Game 2, movement. Game 3, no movement. I don't get why Houston has to be that way, but that's what I saw.
Well, the one thing Houston's got to get back to, and it's the most successful thing they've been able to do, is attack Golden State early in the shot clock. If they allow it to get under 16 seconds in the shot clock, they are a different offensive team. The Golden State Warriors, either through fast break, not getting layups, but fast breaks that lead to open threes.
Yeah,
you have to try to get after Golden State and their defense earlier in the shot clock.
That's what I think the biggest difference between Game 2 and Game 3 was. The Warriors had 7 first-quarter turnovers in Game 2. They had 8 total turnovers in Game 3. I thought the Rockets, I thought in half court it looked somewhat similar. They were getting to the rim in the half court in the first half. In particular, they were, I think, 11 of 25 in the paint in the first half. They had 12 missed free throws, or I'm sorry, layups and dunks. And the other thing is this: Chris Paul got to be better.
No question.
Chris Paul has to be better offensively. Game 1, he was bad. Game 3, he was bad. Game 2, he didn't have a great statistical night, but he seemed to be controlling the offense somewhat. Like, Harden was awful defensively and was mediocre offensively, but Chris Paul has to be better for them.
And there were a couple things, too, last night that I'm wondering Chris Paul, because I'm going to watch him the rest of the series. Mentally, it started to get to him. He started doing a couple little things. After they made a bucket and they called a timeout, he kind of shoved the guy. He also hit the ball into the stands one time. And he missed a wide open layup. So, Chris Paul, never been to the conference final, also has had some playoff shortcomings. So, I'm going to personally watch him and see how he competes and how he leads this Houston Rockets team.
So it was almost, I saw the same thing as the little bumps here and there before timeouts and stuff. It was almost like he's trying to, okay, I'm being outplayed. Because Steph has gotten the best of Chris for years. Made him fall and things like that. And it's like, if he's being outplayed, now he's trying to get physical to overcompensate, and that's not what he's just got to be better on the court. I also think you're seeing, and I know you love your beloved Houston Rockets, okay?
I mean, well, sure. It's not,
right. They're second only to LeBron, I know. Sure. But there's 2 different philosophies going on. Houston, it's all 3 ball or in the paint. Chris Paul gives them a little mid-range, but that's really what it is. Golden State, even though everybody views them as this 3-point team, they are a balanced offense. They use the whole court offensively. They'll get in the paint. Durant, though, is mid-range, killing you mid-range, and then they have the 3, of course. I think that's the difference, and that's a big difference in these 2 teams.
Well, and that means the difference is Durant. Because they weren't...
But I think Golden State, if they don't have the 3 going, they can still beat you other ways.
Sure, but
Houston, not so much.
But the mid-range game is Durant. The mid-range game is a 7'1" guy who's one of the greatest shooters ever, who can just pull up on anybody.
It's a philosophy thing, too.
But Steph and Clay will also hit their share of mid-range.
No, Houston, except for Chris Paul and James Harden, no one is allowed to take mid-range shots. No one is allowed to do it except for those 2 guys.
And nobody can really do it.
Right.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.